Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at headless and decoupled CMS architectures.
Sounds good.
Whether you're, getting ready for some big meeting about this, or you're just kind of curious about these increasingly popular approaches, we're going to try to break it all down for you today. Our guidepost for this journey is going to be an article by Padma Priya called Headless Architecture and Decoupled Best Differences 2024. And I gotta say, some of the stats in this article were pretty wild.
Yeah. It's really fascinating to see how much attention these architectures are getting. Priya actually highlighted how the headless CMS market is expected to grow from just $605 million in 2022 to almost $4 billion by 2032. So that's huge growth.
4 billion with a B. That's massive. It makes you wonder what's driving this huge adoption rate. It can't just be like a tech trend, right?
Right. It's definitely more than just a trend. I think it really goes back to, the problems that traditional CMS was trying to solve.
Yeah.
Remember those old clunky websites where if you changed one thing, the whole thing would just break?
Oh, yeah. I remember those days.
So traditional CMS tried to fix that. But it ended up creating a system where the front end, what your users see, was very tightly coupled to the back end where the content actually lived.
Yeah, the good old days of tangled code.
Exactly. And so both headless and decoupled CMS are trying to address this by separating those two elements, the content from the presentation.
Okay, so we're talking about decoupling content from presentation. I like it, but can you maybe break that down a little bit further for us?
Sure. So in the simplest terms, you can think of headless CMS as content as a service. It's completely driven by APIs, which means your content is stored in the cloud and delivered via those APIs to any platform or device you can think of, websites, mobile apps, anything.
So it's like if I'm building an app and I need product information, I can just call up the CMS API and get that data formatted how I want it without having to mess around with like templates or anything like that.
Exactly. It gives developers a ton of freedom to build the front end however they want using whatever technologies they prefer.
Okay. So with headless CMS, it's like I'm getting all the raw ingredients and I can kind of build my own dish from scratch however I want.
That's a great way to put it. Decoupled CMS, on the other hand, offers a bit more of a middle ground.
Okay.
You still get the benefits of separating content from presentation, but it often comes with some pre-built front-end options or templates that you can then customize.
Okay. So with decoupled, it's kind of like I'm getting a meal kit.
Yeah.
I have some guidance, some pre-selected ingredients,
Exactly.
but I can still make it my own.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Now I'm really interested to dig into like the nitty-gritty of each approach. Let's start with headless. What are some of the advantages that make it so appealing? I know Priya in her article really emphasized flexibility, how developers have complete control over that front-end experience.
Yeah, and that's a huge plus, especially for businesses that have really ambitious digital strategies. Think about companies that need to reach users across all sorts of different channels, websites, mobile apps, even things like smartwatches.
Okay.
Headless CMS lets them create content once and then deliver it to all these different places without having to start from scratch each time.
So headless is like the ultimate omni-channel tool.
Pretty much. But, no technology is perfect, right?
Yeah.
Headless does have some really strong security advantages, though.
Yeah.
Because the content database is separate from the publishing platform.
Yeah.
It actually reduces the attack surface for hackers.
Oh, that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
It's much harder to compromise a system when the content itself is isolated and accessed only through secure APIs.
So not only is headless super flexible, but it can also be more secure than traditional CMS.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so headless seems to be winning in terms of flexibility and security so far. What about decoupled? What are its strengths?
Well, as we said before, it offers that middle ground, right? You get the advantages of separating content from presentation. But you also have those pre-built front-end options that could be really helpful for teams that maybe don't have a ton of in-house expertise.
So it's a good option for teams who want more control than a traditional CMS offers, but maybe don't have the resources to build everything from scratch.
Exactly. And because of that more streamlined development process, decoupled often actually performs better.
Oh, okay.
It's known for faster load times and better scalability. Things like caching and auto-scaling can really make a difference in delivering a smooth experience.
Okay. This is all making a lot more sense, but I have to admit my head's spinning a little bit. Is there any way we can kind of visualize these differences between headless and decoupled in a more structured way?
Sure. Imagine we have a table.
Okay.
And we list out some of the key features like flexibility, front-end dependency, how easy it is to set up, and the ideal use cases for each approach.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, let's start with flexibility. I'm guessing Headless CMS is the clear winner there.
Yeah, for sure.
It gives you that complete freedom to build whatever you want.
Exactly. But when it comes to front-end dependency, Decoupled might be a better choice for some. Those pre-built front-end options can be a lifesaver if you don't have a lot of technical expertise.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's all about finding the right balance between freedom and ease of use. What about ease of setup? I have a feeling that Headless might be a little bit more demanding.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Since you're basically building everything from scratch.
Yeah, Headless CMS usually requires a bit more technical know-how to get everything configured properly.
Okay.
Decoupled can often be set up much more quickly, especially if you're using those pre-built components.
Okay, so under ideal use cases, we'd probably say that Headless is perfect for companies that want a truly custom experience, something that really pushes the boundaries.
Yeah, think cutting-edge web experiences, complex integrations. Those are the areas where Headless really shines.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all this fits together. But like with any technology, I imagine there are some trade-offs to consider. What are some of the potential downsides or challenges that we should be aware of?
Yeah, that's a really important point. You always have to weigh the pros and cons.
Right.
For example, one potential challenge with Headless is that it really requires a lot of technical expertise.
Yeah.
If you don't have a strong development team, it can be really tough to build and maintain a headless system.
So it's not just about the initial setup.
Right.
You also need to think about the long-term maintenance.
Exactly. And with decoupled CMS, even though those pre-built components can be great, they can sometimes lead to what we call feature bloat.
Oh, interesting.
You can end up with a system that has way too many features, which just adds complexity without adding real value.
So even though decoupled might seem simpler at first, it can actually become more complex to manage over time.
Yeah, if you're not careful, it's all about choosing the right fit for your needs and resources. There's no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to CMS architecture.
Absolutely.
You really have to think carefully about what's going to work best for you.
Yeah, this has been really helpful so far. I feel like I'm starting to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each approach. But I think what would really help solidify this for me is if we could dive into some real-world scenarios. I'm curious how this actually plays out in practice.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's get into some examples.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at some specific examples. Priya's article actually highlighted a few scenarios that I think are really helpful.
Okay.
So imagine you have a company that's really all about pushing the boundaries of digital experiences.
Okay.
They want to build a website with like super unique interactions, something that feels really cutting edge. And they also want to be able to deliver that same content seamlessly to their mobile app.
Oh.
And maybe even integrate with some IoT devices down the line.
Okay, yeah, I can see where you're going with this.
So in that case, it sounds like Headless CMS would be the way to go.
Yeah, they definitely need that flexibility to build that custom front end and the ability to push their content to all those different places without any restrictions.
Exactly. Now let's contrast that with a company that's primarily focused on delivering high-quality content through their website.
Okay.
So they want a CMS to manage like their blog posts, their articles, their videos.
Yeah.
They might want to customize certain parts of the design and maybe integrate with some marketing tools.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel.
Right. So in that case, decoupled CMS seems like a more practical choice.
Exactly.
They still get that separation of content and presentation, but they can leverage those pre-built front-end options to get up and running faster.
And potentially save some money on development costs, too.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It's like choosing the right tool for the job. You don't always need a chainsaw when a handsaw will do.
That's a great way to put it.
And speaking of costs, it's worth remembering that building a headless CMS from scratch can be a pretty big investment up front.
Yeah, definitely.
You need a skilled development team who are comfortable working with APIs and maybe even multiple programming languages.
It's a bigger undertaking for sure.
Yeah. So if you're a smaller company or a startup with limited resources, decoupled CMS might be the way to go. It lets you take advantage of those pre-built components, which can be a huge help when you're trying to move quickly.
Exactly. But here's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
We've been talking a lot about the technical side of all this.
Yeah.
But we can't forget about the user experience.
Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how technically advanced your CMS is if it's not delivering a good experience for your users.
You could have the most secure, flexible system in the world.
Right.
But if your users are frustrated, it's all for nothing.
Exactly. And this is where both headless and decoupled can present some unique challenges. Because you're separating that content from the presentation layer.
Yeah.
You have to be really careful about maintaining consistency across all your different channels.
I can see how that could be tricky.
Yeah.
If you're not careful, you could end up with a website that feels completely different from your mobile app, even though they're both using the same content.
Exactly. So careful planning and communication are key here.
Right.
You need to think about the entire user journey.
Yeah.
And make sure your CMS architecture is supporting a consistent experience across all those touch points.
So it's not just about choosing a CMS based on the technical stuff.
Right.
You also have to think about the bigger picture.
Exactly.
And make sure your technology choices are aligned with your overall goals for the user experience.
Well said. It's all about finding that balance between technical excellence and user-centric design.
This has been a really insightful deep dive. I feel like I've learned a ton about headless and decoupled CMS. Not just the definitions, but also like the real-world implications and the strategic considerations.
I'm glad to hear that.
And Priya's article really helped to clarify a lot of this for me.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
And I love that she includes that comment section where you can hear from people who are actually using these systems.
Yeah, it's really valuable to get those real-world perspectives.
Definitely. It reminds us that there's no one right answer when it comes to CMS architecture.
It's all about finding the best fit
Yeah.
for your particular situation.
You know, as we're talking about all this, I'm realizing that choosing between headless and decoupled CMS is kind of like choosing between different approaches to cooking.
Oh, okay. I like that. Tell me more.
Well, imagine headless CMS is like being a master chef.
Yeah.
You have a fully stocked pantry, complete creative freedom. You can source the finest ingredients, experiment with different techniques, and create a culinary masterpiece. But it requires a lot of skill, a deep understanding of the culinary arts.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It really highlights the potential of headless to create something truly unique and innovative.
Exactly. And then decoupled CMS, imagine that's more like using a meal kit service.
Okay.
You still have some flexibility. You can choose your dishes, add your own personal touches, but you're working with pre-portioned ingredients and a set of instructions. It's a bit more streamlined, more approachable, especially if you're not a seasoned chef.
Right. You get the convenience and the guidance, but you don't have to sacrifice all the creativity.
Exactly. So it seems like the choice between headless and decoupled really comes down to your level of ambition, your comfort level with technology, the resources you have available. It's about finding that right balance between creative freedom and practical considerations.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about choosing the approach that helps you achieve your goals.
Well, I think we've done a pretty good job navigating this complex world of headless and decoupled CMS.
I think so too.
Thanks to this deep dive into Priya's article, we've got a much better understanding of these architectures.
And hopefully you, the listener, do too.
And if you're looking to learn even more, I highly recommend checking out the comments section of Priya's article.
Yeah, there's some great insights there from people who are actually using these systems every day.
It's always so valuable to get those real-world perspectives. It reminds us that there's no one right answer.
It's all about finding the right fit for you.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. If you were building a digital experience today, whether it's a website, a mobile app, or something totally new and innovative, which architecture would you choose and why?
That's a great question. It really makes you think about everything we've talked about today.
What factors would be most important in your decision? Think about the level of customization you need, the resources you have, the type of experience you want to create for your users.
It's all about finding the approach that best empowers you to bring your vision to life.
Well said. And remember, there's always another deep dive waiting just around the corner. If you have any source material you'd like us to explore in a future episode, please don't hesitate to share it with us.
We'd love to hear from you.
We love getting lost in the world of knowledge, and we love bringing you along for the ride.
Until next time, happy exploring.